Welcome to another episode of Behind the Strategy, a place for conversations, a place to find out and reveal all. What is behind your strategy?
I am here with somebody who I've really admired and respected on LinkedIn for a million years. Marc Hogan, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really grateful to meet you as a person and for you to have accepted this invitation into the lab.
I'm very glad to hear it. I was just saying, I don't know how long we've been following each other on LinkedIn, but it feels like a long time. So it's nice to suddenly hear the voice behind the photos and the LinkedIn posts. So it is lovely.
And the thing is, because you were quite a pioneer to me. I sort of throw this out there because a few years ago, and I can't remember the exact year, I got one of your videos where you were talking about doing a video every day, and I was thinking, whoa, that is so brave. And at first I was thinking, oh, what the hell is he going to talk about? And it was way before it became, the thing. So, and I remember some days you're like, right, no, I've made this commitment. And even right towards midnight, you go, right, I've done it. And other times it was, there was always something to say. And I found that absolutely fascinating. And there was another guy who was doing something similar. Joe Applebaum, got to get him on here. Joe, if you're listening. He was doing really short snippets on his bike sometimes or running around the town a bit before other people were. And it gave me the idea to do, hashtag an idea in 15 seconds. And I did quite a lot of those. And it made me realise you can actually say a lot with less, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. I did that. I think that's 365 days of video. Thank God it wasn't a leap year. It was 5 years ago, and I did do all of them. And it, I think it probably broke me psychologically. But the thing is, the world is an endlessly fascinating place, and every day is a school day. In the best way. I don't mean in a terrible treat each way. There's always something. I've forgotten more. There's something new, and LinkedIn is so good for that. If you've got a good feed, so many people, and it's not necessarily like they know a fact or something that you don't know. It's just even people's perspectives on certain things and how they view the world. You go, I would have never thought that or looked at it that way. And that's why, LinkedIn is so cool. That's why it is great from that perspective.
Yeah, I like to think I am somebody who is, actually some people have accused me of always sitting on the fence, and I don't do that. I'm just always able to show a different perspective and a different side of things because on one hand, I don't want to ever be thought of as narrow-minded, and yet as I'm getting older, I'm sure I'm more opinionated, which may, it's slightly different, but I can always see different perspective, and when I see something that is completely different, it actually brings me joy because I love that challenge. And I guess when you were doing all those videos and since then, because I wanted to talk to you originally about Impostor Syndrome, because from an ADHD perspective, I see it as slightly different. But you showing up all that time, every day, you must have learned so many things that maybe you felt didn't really understand, weren't confident about at first. And then it became like a matter of, you're blasé about it now. I'll rock up online and do whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I ever felt 100%. I think that's the first thing, actually. Before we get into it, I think if you feel, and I speak for a living, I coach, all that stuff. I think I'm never 100%. I've got this. I'm confident that I know my stuff. I've learned my subject. I can do this. I've got past experience to boost me, but I wouldn't necessarily say nervous, slightly excited about the next thing that I'm going to do, whether it's getting on stage or whether it's coaching someone or whatever it might be, So I think if you're 100% all the time, I think that could be a bad thing. I think you might not care as much. I think being a little nervous shows how much you care. Actually, that's kind of how I've always figured it in my head. If I'm not nervous, I probably don't care about it in the same way as I'm just a little bit. Like today, I'm a little bit nervous because I want it to be good. I want it to be good for you. Not for me necessarily. Yeah. Good for you.
Thank you. And you also want to be released from the lab later and not have to be stuck with the other hostages. I mean, prisoners. I mean, the others. There's that as well, isn't there?
Well, there is that. Yes, I know.
Oh, did I not get the memo? That
I didn't know what those muffled shouts and moans were before the camera came on, but I didn't want to say anything.
Yes. Yeah, that's for my other podcast. But anyway, hey. But you're right. I get the same feeling when I'm excited about something as when I do when I'm nervous, because the same chemicals are running around, aren't they? It's the adrenaline and bits trying to make you fired up so that you can take action and do what you need to do. And also, I'm incredibly, if I'm really, really motivated, inspired and excited about something, I have to try not to forget what it is that I'm doing halfway through in a conversation. There are so many ifs and buts. Now, on one hand, I don't know if part of that is me going, oh, well, yeah, remember, Kate, you do this. And I'm sort of self-fulfilling prophecy stuff. I do try not to do that. But on the other hand, I do always thought that if I'm feeling that feeling, whatever it is, that it's something that I'm inspired by or I'm motivated by. And therefore, I know, to me, it's important. And yeah, and there's a difference between if I am not sure about the content or what I'm going to speak about. If I had to wing it, I can wing it and stand up confidently and wing it. But there's still that different feeling in the back of my head, which then kicks in. And that is, oh my God, am I good enough? Should I be doing this? What the hell are people going to think of me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think... So, I think it was Pauline Clance and Susan Imes who first kind of talked about imposter phenomena. Yeah. And so imposter syndrome implies that it's some kind of condition, but it isn't properly diagnosed as a syndrome. I don't believe it's in any diagnostic book. So, but a phenomena is something that we all can feel. And I think it was back in 1978, and they were talking about that feeling of intellectual fakery or phoniness, and that your success was based on external factors that weren't in your control, like luck, or someone was being kind, or that kind of thing that you felt, or not you particularly. I mean, they were working with women at the time, so that women felt that they were, somehow phony or fake, and weren't, and it wouldn't matter how, wouldn't matter how clever they were or how great they were, or all their achievements, it was luck, or someone made a mistake and gave them the better grade, all that kind of stuff that mental hoops that people would jump through rather than be able to accept that actually they may be good enough, and they may have maybe a value, and they should be there, and they are clever enough, good enough, and,
Yeah, because there is a difference between the knowledge that we have and how confident we have, the confidence we have in our own knowledge, expertise, experience, whatever it is we're talking about, and the difference between the expectations of how we're going to deliver what we're promising. If we're talking about speaking, for example, or how we're going to deliver or show up online, there are so many external expectations, and you can get different ones for every single day, which just makes it even more confusing, because the default of people pleasing kicks in, doesn't it? And as we both know, we cannot please every single person in the world. That is just impossible, right? Impossible. So therefore, it's ridiculous. However ridiculous it is, it's that the brain's going, yeah, I don't care about how ridiculous and how unrealistic that is. I'm still not going to believe it.
No.
Well, that's quite a powerful override within our way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is to remember is that a huge number of people feel that. I read one study or a meta-analysis, and they said people who experience, they gave a couple of figures of the percentage of the population of these studies who depending on how it was measured, who experienced imposter phenomena. It was between 9% and 82% of this population. So,
wow.
So that's, 82% of us, up to 8%, can feel this thing and not feel that we are, somehow fake or not deserving. And so it is a very powerful, these are really powerful things. And I think it affects all of us. I think I can't remember the exact percentages. I know they think it's more common in women than men. Now, is that because the people answering the questions, the men have not admitted to it? Could be. Sometimes we give a socially desirable answer to someone to show that, well, no, yes. I don't feel that, because you don't want to let anyone know you feel that. Maybe women are more honest in that situation, so it might be that. But it is, as a man who's approaching 50, I certainly know that the thought of appearing of not knowing or feeling less than, was definitely there, but I never wanted anyone to know it was there. I would do anything I could to hide it, which would mean I wouldn't do things because I didn't want to fail at them. I wouldn't take risks, wouldn't do those things. If I do that, I could fail. So it does impact huge number of people, and our brain is weird the way it can do things, and whether is it chemicals, is it signals in your brain? I mean, I once met a monk, and he said your brain doesn't know the difference between good or bad. It's all just electrical signals in the brain. They're just currents going back and forth. You're the one who gives meaning to it. So whether it becomes fear or whatever, I thought that was I hadn't really thought about that. In your brain, it's just electrical. They're not putting isn't putting whether it's good or bad in it. It's you who makes that meaning, which I thought was really interesting. It's all just electrical.
Well, that is, and that having, been a social worker and psychology, with parenting and behaviour in a previous life. Sorry, folks, I do mean this life, just when I was younger, just in case you think I'm...
That's what we're talking about Buddhist monks. He had gone down that route.
I just want to say that. Talking about... Yes. Please send me the odd messages. The thing is, now I've done it again. This is how the brain works. I'm thinking of one thing and then I forget another, and I had something really important to say then. No, so this is Behind Strategy with ADHD. And I'm ringing it today, folks, as I do every single day, because I don't go by the script. There is no script. So I thought at a young age that there was something wrong with all the adults, okay? Because the concept at a young age that there was something wrong with me, I didn't want to accept it. Now, we've all had different childhoods, and one, to say, well, go into details, mine wasn't the easiest, and I was always in a lot of trouble. Everything I did was wrong, right? But at a very young age, I had a grandmother who absolutely idolized me. Whenever I went round there, she'd be announcing to the neighbours, "Oh, oh my goodness!" And she was so proud. And if we went to the shop, she'd parade us in. "Oh, these are my grandchildren." And she always made me feel incredibly loved, valued, and I had that one person, which was a really good contrast. So therefore, I chose to believe that because the feelings within me that came with it were nicer, right? And I found it easier to block out the negative feelings and just discard them, ignore them, pretend, I don't know, bottle them up, whatever people do, I don't know, but I didn't have to deal with them. So I always thought that the way that I could, so knowledge to me was incredibly important. I didn't want anyone to know I didn't know what I was talking about. And I had a thirst to learn everything, absolutely everything. And the more I know, then I can solve this. The more I know, the more I can deal with this, which was true. And it always is still true up to a point. And this is the point I see other people going through in online, is where do you draw the line at learning, even if it's to offer more to your clients? I mean, you've just recently qualified with a fantastic new qualification. And so the question is, how much of that was your thirst for knowledge? How much of that was your desire to do better for clients? Because I see others in the type of thing you're doing, that makes sense. But also, what then? What next?
Yeah, well, that's...
is it going to be a next?
Yeah, well, that's the classic question. So I have a MSc in coaching psychology, and then I thought, well, and I've been coaching for years before my qualification.
Yeah.
Or I thought at least I was coaching. Perhaps I was more mentoring than coaching, if truth be told, but that's a whole other conversation. But what I did realize was, wow, there are things I'm not, maybe there are conversations that I'm not equipped to handle, that people will reveal things in a coaching that maybe I'm not ready, that I'm not equipped to handle. So doing the MSc was the first step of that. And then doing the European Mentoring and Coaching Council Senior Practitioner course at the Tavistock. It's a psychodynamic therapeutics, psychodynamic course in coaching. I did that for 18 months. And, and I'm now doing another MSc in psychology with business. So that feeling of never enough is a real strong drive in me.
Yeah.
And it's partly to add value, partly to know more, to be able to help my clients more. But if I'm being honest, it's more about my own search for validation than it is anything else. If we're going to have that honest conversation, yeah, of course.
Yep.
I keep saying to my wife, I'm not going to do a PhD. I'm not going to do a PhD. And I hopefully I won't do a PhD because but there is a little nagging thing. Going, maybe you would be, maybe someone will take you more seriously, or maybe you'll be able to add more value. Maybe, so you do, that voice, the inner critic, the in comedy, because I've got a background in stand-up comedy, we call it the editor, the voice in your head. That voice is there, and it's very strong.
I think it comes from our core values. That's what I was going to say earlier, actually. It's about, and are they ours? Because, our values, beliefs you grow up with, that, when the kid turns around and says, "I'm sorry, Dad, I don't support the same football team as you." Normally that could be an act of rebellion, but that's just the start, isn't it? Of asserting your own thoughts and beliefs and testing the water. Is it okay to have a different belief? Is it okay to think something different? Now, I have 3 grown-up adult kids, and I have my own taste in music, which is fairly eclectic. And I can thankfully say that although each of them would appear to have different types and genres of music, they have all been totally indoctrinated by me. Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that anymore.
They're not listening, I hope.
No, because we are really, really musical. We love rock music. We love instruments. We go to gigs. We've had, that's been a big part of what I've done with the kids growing up. They've been in bands and all sorts, and it's a really big thing. And for them, I know for myself, the identity that I had was connected to music and comedy. I found from a young age, if I could make people laugh, then they would not look any further than that. And I didn't want them to. And if I could play a song, they would just listen to that and talk about that, and they wouldn't go any further. So for me, it was a coping strategy. And then it became a way of life. And it's embedded in my core values that we have. I always try and teach everybody or talk to everybody, mentor, whatever I do is you've got to have something that just brings you joy that you can just do, be, have, and it's yours, because your comedy. Tell me more about your stand-up comedy, though.
You said a couple of things there, just to where do our values come from? Where do our things? So personality, which just the easiest way to measure that is ocean, which is openness, conscientiousness, extroverted, agreeable, and neuroticism.
Oh, that's good.
So that's an ocean. So that's in my opinion, probably the gold standard measure of personality. And within the psychological, within the psychological community, and depending on which study you read, 40% to 60% of your personality is based on genetics. So what's being passed down to you from your genetic line is what has a huge impact on who you are. But that means 40 to, if it's 60%, let's say, the other 40% is down to environment, i.e. how you grew up.
Nature, nurture.
Nature, nurture. Yeah, exactly that. It's nature, nurture. And we do learn consciously and unconsciously values from the people around us, the society we grew up with. And just even just think about. I mean, crikey, I'm Irish originally. I moved to the UK at the age of 13 in 1987, and so height of the IRA bombing campaign in the UK. So, I have a false front tooth because, I was punched in the face a lot. It turned out, I didn't realise I had a very punchable face. And I punched a lot. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is, but just think about the norms of what, I remember you remember those big adverts for AIDS, do you remember the tombstone and AIDS and we're all going to die and,
What?
And there was all this fear around homosexuality and all those things. And, you think about, I remember there were people in school who were clearly coming to terms with their sexuality, but they they daren't admit that they might be gay because all hell would break loose. They bullied terribly. And then mercilessly. And now here we are in 2024. And I'm sure there are people, and look, I'm not talking just saying the UK, because I know there are countries in the world where that is not accepted. But in the UK and in Ireland, up until recently, we had a gay prime minister. that being gay, that social norm, that value was completely changed in 40 years, less than 40 years.
Yeah.
So context, how we are growing up, like our parents will say stuff, I don't know if my dad occasionally say stuff and I'll have to go to Dad, you can't say that.
No, I have. Same with my mum.
Cool, Dad. I understand why you're saying it and I get it.
Yep.
But that's not cool anymore. You can't.
No.
That's not cool. And sometimes it's hard for people to learn that. I think as we get older, maybe back to your point, we get more narrow in our thing. But so we do learn our values from not just our family, but the people, our peer group, the people around us, and our values can change. That's the wonderful thing. I don't. Our core values may not change, but we can learn, we can flex, we can grow with people. And I mean, I think that's why I do what I do, because I genuinely believe we can grow and change and continue to grow and change. We don't have to be thing. But back to that question of stand-up comedy. So much like and the reason I mentioned coming to England, I was the outsider. I was the first Irish kid in my school. High bombing. Probably shouldn't have showed up on that first day in Balaclava. But, it was very cold. No, but the point being is, it was, being able to stand up for myself was one element that I had to do. Look, I come from quite an argumentative family, so therefore being able to hold your ground, that was good in a way, because I did have to hold my ground a few times. But also being funny, or at least trying to be funny, was another important thing, because if you could make people laugh, people go, he's all right, he's okay, we don't need to punch him. So that was it. So I've always been relatively, and probably not today, but I've always been relatively quick on my feet in terms of like verbal stuff. So, I crack a joke and all. So, I come from Ireland. My mum's a storyteller, my mum tells the best stories. So, so that's in us, if you can't tell a story in Ireland, you're son from the village. So that was that. And basically in 2008, I was given a speech, and a chap called Jim Lawless, who was a speaker. He had become a jockey, all to win a £1 bet.
I love that.
Exactly. So he'd become a speaker, and he's now broken the world free diving record and all kinds of things. He's, really interesting guy. Well, basically, he said to me, "Oh, you're quite funny," which is a lot like a lover saying you're quite good at bed. And he said, "But it's easy to make a business audience laugh. It's easy to make it because they're not expecting very much." And I thought, well, I don't know. It's the same whether it's a business audience. And he said, "Well, prove it." And I said, "Well, how do you want me to prove it?" And he said, "The Edinburgh Festival." And I'd never been to Edinburgh at that point. And it was on that year, it was on that month. It was like June 2008. And I said, "I've never been there. So do you want me to go up and like do 5 minutes, like an open mic thing?" He went, No. You speak for a living, Mark. I want you to do a 1 hour, one-man show for the full festival.
Great. Bring it on.
I thought, well, who's the bloody comedian here? And he said, "Well, I'll give you a year to prepare." So he said, "You don't do it now. You've got to do it now. And I'll make it worth your while. I'll bet." And I said, "How much will you bet?" And he went, £1. And back in 2008, £1 was worth a lot of money.
They always get a couple of experience for that.
So it's up there. And that's what I did. So I did then 21 nights at the Edinburgh Festival. So stand-up comedy.
Fantastic.
And then pretty much that was the beginning of my speaking career. That was starting to then go around the world. I have been lucky. I have traveled. I have spoke all around the world, 17, 18 countries now. And talking about stand-up comedy and talking about how that can help you in your business and how the skills of communication. But also, that's then developed into, getting coaching psychology degrees and all those other things, to try and figure stuff out and be of value to my audience and my clients. Yeah, so that's how it all went.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I love the language, the use of language, and I think that's, connects to what you've said there with what we're talking about, the language of what we see and hear, the messaging that we take on board. It's like you have all these, like you said, you have these electrical things flying towards us. And it's almost like that little game where you have, the red and the blue come down. You go red, blue, red, blue. You've got to click the right one. And then it's like, if you get it in the wrong one, or if your little hedgehog comes down and you just, just me. But it's a bit like that. We filter out what we want and what we don't want. And I know now as I'm older that I have selectively done that. But I haven't always been consciously aware of it. Hell, I would have one day, I will be 100% behind absolutely everything I'm completely saying, believing, and the perspective that I've got. Sometime later, I could talk about the same thing from a different perspective and be completely behind that. And I sort of forget because new information has come in. Yeah. And I'm not afraid to... One thing I guess which impacts imposter syndrome is that the fear of being laughed at, the fear of having rotten tomatoes thrown at you, the fear of trolls, the fear of being judged negatively. Because when we say, right, we don't care what other people think, I'm going to call everyone out on that because if you think I'm amazing, I'm going to love you. So we do care.
Yeah, frankly. Yeah, I don't care what anyone thinks unless they think I'm awesome.
Yeah, all right. If they don't, then it's none of my business. You can think what you like. I'm not interested. But when you ridiculise it like that, it's I'd studied social work, psychology. I had a big career shift and a change. And then in 2009, I went back to uni and did 2 years for linguistics. It was English language communication and linguistics because I was absolutely fascinated by the use of a word. And I did... I got funded for a project for my dissertation. I managed to get some funding for it, right? Amazing. Yeah. I know. I was I was in the last cohort that got some funding to do this particular one because I came up with something that no one had done before, and that was to analyse the use of the language in the English court system. So comparing magistrates' use of language in the magistrate court, the Crown Court, and the family court. And the reasoning behind it was that in the family court, where the stakes are so high because they could result in children being removed from families, the language that they use, the words are so long, and half of them I don't even get. Do you know what I mean? Not just legal terminology.
The whole structure of the language, the whole sentence.
Yeah, and it was that, this isn't fair for the parents and the families if they don't know what on earth is going on. So I sat in the magistrates court and I went to the Crown Court as well. And I was, there's an amazing judge who did a 2-week court case, invited me under his 2-week court case in the family court. And because I was a qualified social worker and I had been through the system, previously, he allowed me to sit on the bench with him, right? Wow. Wow. And now, I didn't feel like an imposter sitting there. I actually felt quite, I know at that time I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to think quite a lot of me. So when I go into a lot of courts, they're going to sort of have a bit of a, I stepped into it. I did. I felt incredibly big-headed and internally. I don't think the word big-headed, but incredibly like, wow. this is me sitting up here. I feel so good. Do you know what I mean? And the use of that, it was incredible because he knew exactly what I was doing, and we would go back afterwards, or he would help me. He was fascinated by what I was doing, and helped me dissect some of the language. And basically, the language in that highly charged situation has to be so precise that even if people don't actually know what it means, it has to have one meaning in the court of law, so that therefore nobody can challenge it in appeal and things like that.
Yeah. So the people who know what the language is know exactly what that means and can't interpret it in any other way.
Yeah. So it turned out that this was a safety mechanism, really, for families, the social workers, whoever was involved. Yes. So all of them. However, the disconnect were the attitudes and the beliefs towards the families, that if they were there, nobody was really explaining it to them. Now, no disrespect to my social work profession, but half of the social workers didn't understand a lot of the words either. But no one would ever admit it. No one would say, I don't know. They would just give assumptions and say this is what it was. And sometimes that was wrong. I was then able to look back and go, actually, they were wrong when they explained it to the family. Yeah, because they wouldn't want to admit, because that's a serious case of imposter syndrome.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? The fear of not knowing enough.
Yeah.
You know, and that we all have. And also then the fear of challenging that of other people, you know, gone, to us blindly accepting from authority figures that is the correct thing. And it might be, but not wanting to challenge, you know, does imposter syndrome not only affect because we pretend to know what we don't know, and that could be bad because we're not explaining it correctly.
Yeah.
But also, does that lead us not to call out behaviors in the workplace or things that are centered on or groupthink, because we immediately think, well, they must know more than me, so therefore I'm not going to say those things. Interesting.
Yeah. No, there's that trust in it, like when people used to always trust the doctor. Well, the doctor said this and that's what it was. You know, people don't think that anymore. They'll go do it on this.
Dr. Google, our friend.
Yeah, they do that. But there's also I think there's also that comes with imposter syndrome is the fear of conflict, because I know from an ADHD perspective, I can have those thoughts that come into my head that if somebody hasn't liked or they've misunderstood, those thoughts can be quite intrusive. And it's like, oh my God, are they cross with me? Are they mad with me? I used to think, oh my God, they don't like me. They must hate me. No, I know other people still feel that. I know that's not true, right? People not with me. And it was only when I realised, actually, I don't really care if everyone hates me. I only care about the people I like, whether they like me or not. So therefore, if I'm more concerned with the conflict now, if I have to challenge, because I still will, I will take risks. I will do all these things, because in my mind is, if I don't, then I'm one of those adults that when I was a kid and looked at and thought there's something wrong with all of them, I would be one of those. And I can't be, can I? Because I have to live. We all have to live with ourselves, don't we? And we will move when we want something bad enough, or we don't want something bad enough. We will move our own barriers, our boundaries, that line. We'll move it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's to change in a way, I suppose what we're talking about is that people will change if the pain is, if something's desirable enough, or the pain is big enough, or an event happens in our lives that causes us to have to deal with change, of that be physical or mental, someone dying or an accident. So we can change if we really want to. We can step out of our comfort zones. take risks. Even if we do feel like an imposter, there is still the ability to do that. And I think that's really helpful, isn't it? That's a good thing. But sometimes we need encouragement.
Yes.
We need people. So well, as far as I know, I have never been diagnosed with ADHD. My mother might have a slightly different opinion on it than I do. I know, I certainly recognise some of the behaviours, but I don't know if they reach a clinical threshold or not.
Mm.
That's fine, but I think that's the thing, isn't it? That certainly there's a number of people on LinkedIn, and you're one of them, that in a way can. I mean, I suppose everyone's ADHD is different. So that's, I think that's probably important to point out.
It is. No, that's right. And I'm really grateful that you did acknowledge that, because a lot of people don't. And yet, if everybody is different, and it goes by default to the fact that people with ADHD are also going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. And so I suppose what I was trying to say was that because there are people like you with ADHD who talk about it, and talk about the challenges of it and the best bits about it, because there are good bits about it. I've got friends who talk about that, the ability to hyper focus when they need to. Sounds like an amazing skill. And I think that's great, isn't it? Because if we are scared, and most of us are scared of something, whether you want to call it imposter phenomenon, imposter syndrome, something, we're all still the child that we were in our, we all carry all those childhood memories and the things that the influence how we were told to behave, or we're not good enough, or whatever, or told we were stupid, or don't be clever in the at the dinner table, don't talk back, whatever, all the things that we consciously learn, the child that we all are. When you have people like yourself who are going, no, it's okay, it'll be all right, and it's all right, you can achieve things, and yes, you might have to adapt the way you do it. It might be a slightly circuitous route. You might not be able to do it the exact same as that person or that person. I think that's massively important, and it doesn't. But I think there has been some work about people who are neurodivergent having imposter phenomenon, having a greater impact on them, because actually they are undiagnosed neurodivergent or diagnosed neurodivergent, and actually that's what's going on. That's helped making them feel even more like an imposter. Because why am I feeling this and no one else in the room is, or why am I acting like this, or no one else in the room is? So it's important if you can see other people in the room similar to yourself, similar in the world, and succeeding, and making it work. I think that's just such an important thing.
It is, and I appreciate you mentioning it as well, because the fact that most of the, especially if they're later diagnosed, or even if people aren't, you still have to mask. We still have to be and fit. We still have to fit in to societal norms, and the strain of doing that is incredibly different for everybody, but it's incredibly challenging. That is what it's all about. So when you've had a whole lifetime of it, we've developed coping strategies, ways of managing things, which now aren't working, because eventually they start to break down. And so, that's why I feel it's so important to not just talk about how I'm going, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing to help other business owners like myself, but also to have conversations with you as well, because you're going into big business, you're going into companies from a completely different perspective. And the whole, I have this and I did this, so can you. It's just because somebody was able to do something, and they have an incredible story to tell, a lot of speaking, that told us, climbed that mountain, fought adversity, and so if they can do it, it's there to inspire everybody else to do it. And on the surface, yes, that can work. But when you see that and you're trying to fit into that with that, oh, well, yes, but so-and-so did that with ADHD, we still fall into that. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? And little things like you say, there are some, the hyper-focus thing. I don't know if many people have ever mentioned. Well, a lot of people have the hyper-focus, but do you know what it does? It's like a feeling. I'll tell you this because I can... So it's like this feeling of anxiety. It's like this little thing. I've got to get this done. And I'm trying to break it really right down, but I don't feel complete. I don't feel content, achieved, like I've accomplished anything until it's completely finished, right? And my brain won't let me. It'll push everything away. I might not go to the loo. I might not have a drink. I might not, at the worst taste, that's what we do for hours and hours and hours. No, and we can just hyper-focus. And if somebody talks to us, it's like this rage that just bubbles up that just is like, don't interrupt me because we're so scared of losing our thread. Because when we're out in public talking to people, we just did a minute ago, I completely lost what I was saying. I completely forgot it. And then brought it back.
Got it. You want to hold on to it.
Yeah. And this is like, and it's something, and it's like that level of anxiety. So people don't talk about that side of things, or about how once you've done your hyper-focus, if you have to stop, you might never go back to it for 4, 5, 6 weeks to a year, 10 years, which is why also everybody jokes about ADHDers have so many things unfinished. It's literally because if we don't hold on to that moment, because we struggle to future pace ourselves, we've struggled to, and that's the time management piece. So I think it's important that having these conversations in the workplace, as whether you work for yourself, whether you're somebody who is able to go into different places with other, like you are, and you're here with me today. We're talking about all this. We're discussing different perspectives, and I feel already I've learned something from you to be able to take with me, and hopefully you have as well. And I think that's what it's all about, the conversations, isn't it? So that we can keep helping everybody else, have a better life, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, and I think you really touched on something massively important. So, I give inspirational speeches as part of what I do, and I coach. And they're two different things. And the thing is, when you give an inspirational speech, I have a story I tell for an hour, and it's crafted, and it's funny, and, it's got drama, all the stuff that you want to make a great story. And all those things happen, but, you make it great.
Yeah.
But, I could have a completely different personality to the person sitting in the room opposite me. I score extremely high in extroversion, right? Extremely high. So for me, going out and talking to people and engaging with people, really, thing I love to do. But if you scored low, in extroversion, that's going to be a so much more bigger struggle. I don't score so high in conscientiousness. I score okay, but that means probably I'm comfortable with good enough sometimes. Well, if you're really high in conscientiousness, you will be anxious. You won't be, because because neuroticism is another thing. But conscientious means you really work hard to complete it to the best of your absolute abilities. And then if you combine that with neuroticism, can you imagine if you're high in conscientiousness and high in neuroticism? Well, that's a recipe for a fun life. And
double whammy.
Yeah, and look, and we're back to it's 60% of your personality, but that means you have 40% you can play with, which is great. So we can learn through CBT and all those other things and coaching to try and get different perspectives and balance those out. But I think that's the point that you said, is that when I tell a story as a speaker, it's great and it's inspiring, but that's my story, and I can give you some clues and tools and hints that may help you. But we have to also accept that they may not help you because you're not me. You're you, and you have had a completely different genetic makeup and life makeup, and so we talk about the person, the role, and the organization. So as a person, you've had a completely different experience to me. Your life has been different to mine, and your genetics are different to mine. We talk about the role, that is your role and work, depending on if you're the lawyer or the salesman. Your role will cause different frictions and changes in your work. And then you've got the culture, the organization, and we're all culture, depending on what you've learned from your cultural norms, how you should behave, how you shouldn't behave, what you should. Don't take a risk, never take a risk, study hard, get a job. That's all you've been told. Then if I go out and say, well, you should start a business, that might not be, that it might be a good thing if you can do it, but it might be harder for you to take those steps because the person, the role, and the organization, all that stuff is playing in together. It's not just simply, well, I did it, so can you. If only life was that simple.
Yes.
If only life was that simple.
Yeah. No, that's, if only life was. So I would love this conversation. This is the sort of thing we could just, obviously talk about forever and ever and ever. And because it just goes off nice little tangents. And the whole point of it is that there's more to it than what you think. That what you're actually seeing there and what your brain is processing that you're now then going to take on board. It's easy for me to say from here, well, try and take a breath and a pause. But the thing is, that is actually, I know it sounds a bit flippant, I have had to do that literally. I see something, and before I know how quickly I can jump into something, so I've had to learn how to not do that, and I've had to learn techniques and strategies so that I can, because I know 30 seconds later, it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And whether it's, I've had to do that. So my daughter, happily married now to have two lovely grandkids. She's a head teacher of a primary school in London. She came to me. She had met Camillus, many years ago when he came over from Ireland to London. And then she told me that they were going to get married, and we were all invited, and the whole big thing. And she said, we're two different cultures. I couldn't have wanted for a better husband for my daughter, to be honest. But the whole point is there were the expectations. She knew deep down, that there was, I would just be, yay, great, this is lovely. But then she knew that. Because we talked about this, and she said, but there was just that something. There was just that something that just made me think, and something might have said, "Are you sure?" And she said, "I don't know how I would have interpreted it if you'd have said, 'Are you sure?'" She said, "I might have interpreted it meaning, should I marry him because he's, an Irishman from Ireland, different cultures. He's Catholic, we're not." Or would you be saying to me, "Are you sure about getting married right now because of that?" She said, "And I'm so glad you didn't ask me that, because at that moment, I don't know, I would have assumed the worst, and that would have impacted the whole thing." But we were able to talk about it. And so I know that's what you always suggest, isn't it? In a lot of your posts,
it's a really good thing, because we talk about, as a coach, the idea is that you don't tell anybody anything. You don't, mentoring is where you give advice from your own personal experience. If someone asks me how to give a good speech, or how, I can go, well, look, here are the 6 things you should do. That's mentoring. That's, and normally that's to do with time as well, because someone's got time limit and they need a direct answer. Coaching is always about asking questions and trying to help people to see in another way and reframing it and getting them to think through the consequences of it. But there's a really good example about, though, are you sure? Now that could be a question that people ask, thinking, well, I'm doing a good thing. I'm asking a question. I'm not saying you shouldn't marry them. I'm going, are you sure? But depending on how you say that and how the person interprets it, that could still have a really big impact on them without you meaning it to be correct, So it is. So being curious about people and trying to be non-judgmental and ask questions to get them to think about it is so important, I think. Yeah. Whether you're coaching or whether you're just, but also being supportive, being kind, so one of the strategies for dealing with imposter phenomenon is compassion. There's lots of books about self-compassion. Kristen Neff has a great one. And we should be compassionate to ourselves and know that we don't know all the answers and we will make mistakes, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But that's a lovely book. But if we can be compassionate to other people, and one of the, is it better to be right or is it better to be kind? Can you, do you have to win the argument or can you be kind to someone? And so, I think being kind, back to, and just that point of you were being kind to your daughter, you were supportive of her guessing marriage and excited. And we need, for people who suffer from imposter phenomenon, we need our managers to be kind.
We do.
There's lots of research that says that really negative feedback can have a real big impacts on a person in work. That a manager's feedback can have a real big impact. And look, so can we? I'm not saying that you should never give negative feedback. That's never going to happen. That's not the real world. But can you do it in a way that helps a person learn and grow and feel that it was okay to make a mistake, and we can move on, isn't it? And back to your parents, my parents never, my parents are Irish. I love them to bits, but they were never, they would never have asked my opinion or what do you think you should do. It was like, don't do that, do this. Don't say that, shut up, do that, So, or you're an aegis or whatever it was they said, or things I would, or things they said without that I can't repeat on here. But being to help people with imposter phenomenon, that we all, if 82% of us suffer from it, can we help people in a kind way? Can we help other people? And maybe in helping other people, our own imposter phenomenon is eased because we realize that we're all carriers, whether we did it or not,
Yeah.
I think that's quite a nice thing, really.
I think it's a lovely thing. I think it's a lovely way to end our lovely conversation, Mark. Thank you so much. Let's all be compassionate, folks. Mark, thank you so much for having this wonderful conversation. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again just to remember to hear what we've said, because I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's absolutely fantastic. And I've now got a hankering because obviously I get inspired and I want to do all the things. I've now got a hankering to be a stand-up comedian, but, am I funny enough?
Well, look, I think you put that one in the course. We can all learn to be funny. Absolutely. So, yes, it's an amazing thing to go and do. I'm sure where you live, there will be courses. And don't get me wrong, it can be tough, but it is an amazing...
Yeah. Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
I've loved it. Thank you so much as well. And I'll no doubt see you on LinkedIn over the next few days. I look forward to listening back to this and seeing this as well.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Strategy. I hope you enjoy listening to the next one. Please subscribe so you get notified of when that's published. And if you'd like to find out more, please pop over to thestrategysuccesslab.com. And please do share this with anyone who you think might need this today.